recording again. I feel way too close to the camera, but hopefully I'm in there, and I will move around a little bit. So this video is specifically for female riders. The actual shape of the lumbar and the pelvis is different in male skeletons and female skeletons. And women have 20% more connective tissue because we have to have babies, right? So for women to get their seat, the traditional riding instruction does not help us, especially the instruction shoulders back. So by shoulders back, almost everybody does is they lift the sternum here. There's no way that I can straighten my lumbar. I'm going to arch my back as soon as I do that. And that arch through my lumbar means I have very little control over my pelvis and my seat. And then I'm going to grip with my legs or jam my heels in the stirrup to find stability. But my core is, actually I'll show you. If I know, a little more herks, shoulders back and heels down gives me a very unstable core. And I instantly depend on my stirrups, right? My arms get shorter, I have less control, and you can see me sort of being hurled around in the middle by Hercules's movement. So the very first thing that I share with women is slouch. Let the shoulders go. That's the easy part to fix. I know, pay attention. So the first thing, I'm just going to run through this super quick. The first thing is slouch, and I mean slouch like a drunk cowboy. Just slouch, get your hands into the neck, do this on a loose rein. When you, ultimately, the slouch is only going to be that. It's just a little drop of the sternum and the shoulders fall back. But when you exaggerate the slouch like that, you're going to find the muscles through your core, around your pelvis, the hip rotators, the inner thigh, everything. So when you first slouch and touch the withers, the neck, the saddle pad, it's going to put all your weight in your butt like that. But the first step is, can you play with the middle of your belly and your lumbar forward and back like this while you slouch? What the slouch helps us do is find the muscular coordination that lifts the front of the pelvis, brings your belt buckle up through the horse's ears, and straightens the lumbar. So here the lumbar is arched forward. I have no power, no seat, no stability. There, my lumbar is straight, right? And you may feel like Quasimodo. You can take pictures. This part from the bra up, easy to fix. What we're working on finding is how to control the skeleton from the bottom of the bra to your upper thigh, right? So once again, we're going to slouch and then play with, right, how to straighten the lumbar and lift the pelvis through your belly. Then you're going to notice that you have more weight in your butt than ever before, or your seat, if I say it nicely. And it's not very heavy in your thigh bones here and here. So with the slouch, with the straight lumbar, now I'm going to rock forward here at the hip joint. The hip joint is in the front, right where your pants fold. So I'm going to kind of go to a 2-point position. And as soon as I rock my torso forward over my legs, the weight comes out of my seat and goes into my thigh bones. And I don't have to push in the stirrup. My legs just get heavier, and particularly here instead of the feet, right? So from here, where I'm very unstable, I'm going to play with slouching first, right? Then I'm going to straighten my lumbar. That's going to put me heavy in my butt. So I'm going to keep the lumbar straight, I'm going to keep the slouch, and I'm going to just rock forward from back here where I'm heavy in the seat. I'm just going to come forward on the seat bones. If I get on my crotch, I went too far. But I just want to kind of take my shoulders over my hands, over my knees, and feel the weight go into my legs. Now, what this does is absolutely solidifies our ability to use our thigh bones, especially on a crooked horse or a horse that's hard to ride. It helps to exaggerate it, like I'm doing now, to get the feel of the coordination to get comfortable without your sternum lifting up and back or your shoulders being thrust back, right? And just to realize that you can shift the weight, right? So the slouch is going to move the weight from my upper half to my lower half, right? Then when I straighten my lumbar, my seat's going to get heavier. As I keep my lumbar straight and I slouch and I rock forward, that's where I can control how much of my body weight I want in my seat compared to my thighs. And if you're riding tricky horses, you want it in your thighs slightly more than your seat. Not to the point that your seat is so light you can get pulled forward, but as I play with a little bit of forward back rocking with my slouch, with my lumbar straight, I feel where my thighs can get ever so slightly heavier than my seat. And I've had people tell me their arms were too short to touch because they're holding their body like this and they feel like they can't reach, right? So that slouch is what drops your weight into the lower half of your body. Once it's in the lower half, we have more muscle control to straighten that lumbar from the core muscles. Once we know how to straighten the lumbar, then we can sort of rock back more into the seat, rock forward into the legs, and sort of play with this. Do I want it in my seat? Do I want it in my legs? Do I want it equal? Do I want it slightly more? On a tricky horse, I like it slightly more in my thighs compared to my seat, right? Then if we want to uncurl our shoulders, it's pretty easy, right? All you do is a little bit of straightening through the upper back between the shoulder blades back there, right? So you think of bringing your shoulder blades together, but you always, like here's my sternum. As soon as I do that, I lose my seat. I'm unstable. As soon as I do that, I have access to all the muscles that control my lumbar and seat. So for women, shoulders back ruins your seat, and that's why so many female riders struggle. And for the male skeleton, it works great. It's actually the instruction for men to open the chest, lift the sternum. It stabilizes their lumbar and pelvis. For women, it has absolutely the opposite effect. It destabilizes our lumbar and pelvis because we have very different construction. In fact, the shape of the lumbar and pelvis is how you tell the difference between a male and female skeleton, right? So it's pretty different. So for us, straightening the shoulders, once we have control over the weight in our thighs, our lumbar straight, our core control, our steady seat, we don't have to fight upper body strength, right? So we just kind of let the shoulders go. We think about bringing the shoulder blades or the scapula slightly together, but never to the point that the sternum lifts. The sternum always feels softly downward and slightly inward in our bodies, right? So my shoulders can be back without me having to lift my sternum, which destabilizes my low back and pelvis immediately. And it's mechanical. This is not an opinion. This is just how shit works. And if you've been fighting getting control with your seat or feeling your horse's back and hind legs, or you've been struggling with stability at faster speeds, bigger jumps, whatever, usually for women, it's in here. So slouch and slouch and slouch and lean on your hands and play with, for women, to stabilize our lumbar and pelvis, which is what I consider the seat. Everything from the last rib to the seat bones is a seat. And if we can't stabilize there, we never really advance our riding. We're always going to be insecure, ineffective at best, right? So stabilizing the seat is the deal. It's the heart of everything. And until we know how to coordinate all that connective tissue, all those muscles, right? It's an event of coordination in the female body, where for men, if they throw their shoulders back, boom, their lumbar and pelvis is stable. And that's just how it works. So for us, slouching, coming over the hands, learning which muscles we need so that when we straighten up, we're not straightening up with a curve through our low back. We're not straightening up and falling back here in our butt where we can't use our legs, right? And so that little, I'll repeat it one more time, how to go through this and explore for yourself. Have somebody do photos or videos, because you feel like an idiot. If you're used to this, you will feel like Quasimodo. And I guarantee you're going to need a picture or a video to see that you actually don't. You don't, but that's what it feels like, especially if you're coming out of this habit. You feel particularly like Quasimodo. Okay, so one last time, start with a slouch, right? And a good slouch. Like your sternum should go down. You should collapse here in the solar plexus and round your shoulders, right? And then put your hands, it'll be easy to put your hands on the horse's neck in the mane. From here, with the slouch, with your hands down, you can play with what muscles, right? Straighten the lumbar back here. And what do I do to arch the lumbar? And feel the relationship between the lumbar spine, the sacrum, which is right between the wings of the pelvis, and even the coccyx, right? So that's your seat. So you're going to play with this, right? And this is where you might need a picture, because this is going to feel really round. But if you look here, my back is flat. If I feel here, my back is pushing towards his tail, not pushing towards his ears. It's that directional change, front to back, through the lumbar, that affects the position of the pelvis. So usually once we do that, especially if we sit up, we're going to be super heavy in the seat. You can see that. My legs feel very light. My seat feels very heavy, right? So with my straight lumbar, with my slouch, now I'm going to rock forward, feel the weight go in my thigh bones, and I'm going to rock backward and feel the weight come out of my thighs into my butt. Then I'm going to rock forward, feel it come out of my seat into my thighs. Somewhere between that forward and back rocking. And notice I'm not going forward and back like this, right? That's what you don't want to do. Once this is straight, it stays straight. The forward and back is actually happening here in the hip joint, right? Not through the spine. It's happening here through the hip joint for me to go forward and back. That's how you control whether you want more weight in the thigh, whether you want more weight in the seat. But shoulders back for women kind of pulls our body weight up high and makes us very unstable. So play with that, see how it works. Definitely have someone take pictures of you, because your brain will scream, this can't be right. It's usually where people ask me for my credentials, and until I get my phone out and show them, you don't look as bad as it feels, right? Once you get used to it, you'll find your horse goes better, and you'll find you're far more secure in any saddle doing any job. I guarantee it. So have a stab at it.